Does Hyva live up to its performance claims? Can it dramatically improve your page speed and thus help you pass Core Web Vitals enough to justify the expense of swapping out your theme? I took it on myself to evaluate thousands of websites, Hyva and everything but Hyva, and the results, I guarantee you, will be surprising. Hyva has emerged as a major player in the Magento modernization space. Not only do they provide a theme and a checkout, but they've also recently introduced an enhancement layer for Adobe Commerce. Their popularity has skyrocketed, and for really good reason. But I am not one to take marketing claims at face value.
You expect me to believe all this?
Thus, I have spent many hours working to identify the differences between Hyva and not Hyva, because after all, that's how we operate. As SwiftOtter, we test, we challenge, and we architect to achieve incredible e-commerce success. And so if you're like me, you hate preambles. Thus, I'm going to jump straight into our findings, and then I'll give you an overview of how I came to these at the end of the video. But don't skip ahead after you hear the numbers, because I have a very surprising caveat that blew me away that I'm going to talk about after I give you these numbers.
Dude.
There are two ways to measure speed. Number one would be the real user data, and the second way would be point-in-time testing. I have analyzed both, and I am presenting both here in this video. So first, and what I think is way more important, is the real user scores, or in Google terminology, it's called Crux. Based on results from the Chrome browser, as we browse websites, it is actually tracking to see how fast these websites are every time we go to it. Thus, the results are very accurate. If you're ready, let's talk about this. First, Hyva's Largest Contentful Paint is 9% faster on average than non-Hyva, in other words, Magento websites. In overly simplistic terms, Largest Contentful Paint describes how quickly the page loads. So that is 9% faster. Second, Hyva's Cumulative Layout Shift, or CLS, basically how much elements change size while loading, is 17% better on average. Third, Hyva's total blocking time, which is the delay before the browser begins receiving information, is actually about 2% worse, which makes sense because Hyva doesn't fix the back-end problems on your website. Thus, it would be about reasonable to expect it to remain the same. Now, this is real-world data from Google about how these websites performed. I also, for the sake of transparency, ran point-in-time measurements. Now, I'll be honest, I don't love these because they are just snapshots instead of aggregate data covering thousands and thousands of users. They're still helpful for debugging and for marketing. And this is where Hyva shines. I put this out here because you're going to hear numbers like 47% better than Magento for the Largest Contentful Paint, or 53% better than Magento for the Cumulative Layout Shift. These are fabulous numbers. But when it gets into the real world, the numbers are far smaller, like about 9 and about 20% better. This gives you the tools to truly assess the return on investment, because it's not going to live up to the marketing claims. Except for maybe one other thing. So what if we focus on just the category and product pages? I'll be honest, I didn't pick up many of these pages just because Google's algorithm requires quite a few visits to that page in order for them to have the accurate sampling to give back to me. There weren't a lot of these, so I take what I'm now about to say with a tremendous grain of salt as a super rough estimate, but these results are very promising. The Largest Contentful Paint on Hyva improves by about 26%, and the Cumulative Layout Shift has about a 43% improvement. Now that is substantial. I told you at the beginning of this, I have a really big caveat, one that knocked the socks off of me. Okay, are you ready for this? If we take the average scores across all measurements for Hyva and non-Hyva sites and plug them into the Core Web Vitals calculator. I'll put the link in the description below. Hyva websites average a score of 95 for Core Web Vitals. That's really good, and that's real user data. You know what shocked me? Because I didn't. Non-Hyva websites average a score of 90. Folks, that's a mic drop for me, right on the ground. I was blown away with this. But after double and triple checking my calculations and then spot checking the data, it's accurate. Performance has been such a massive focus in this industry for a long time now that the data shows and proves that most websites have decent performance with Hyva or without Hyva. Merchants want to get into a respectable range, and thus it's working fine. The other option there is there are enough speedy websites out there to compensate for the slower ones in these statistics. That also is a possibility too. With that, I am guessing you have 3 questions. If you have more questions, drop them in the comments below or send me an email, joseph@swiftotter.com. I'm guessing your questions are these 3 here. If my website has a bad Core Web Vitals score, will moving to Hyva fix it? Great question. I'll answer that. Number 2 question, will I receive ROI with moving to Hyva? Another fabulous question, and we'll wrap it up with a 3rd question. How did you come up with these numbers? Let's jump in. First, if my website has a bad Core Web Vitals score, will moving to Hyva fix it? Possibly. This entirely depends on your agency and their ability to maintain performance. Hyva's performance on a vanilla Magento website is good out of the box, but there are some poorly performing Hyva websites out there. I argue it is literally your agency that makes or breaks the implementation. Well, I will say, choose wisely. Like us here at SwiftOtter, and I promise we will take fabulous care of you. Second, will I achieve ROI by moving to Hyva? You know, if you keep your same design and simply shift it over to Hyva, and you are only looking at performance metrics, I'll be really honest, I just don't see how you will achieve a return on investment. This is my opinion. However, from what I have seen with most successful Hyva implementations, it's often also a let's upgrade the design at the same point. In other words, improve the user experience is a smart thing to do. It's something that we at SwiftOtter here love to do. Starting off the project with a SwiftOtter user study to laser focus in on what your customers really want and then deliver on that, oh wow, that is a winning formula. And then 3rd question, how did I come up with these numbers? Great question. We downloaded the worldwide Magento list from BuiltWith. Then we identified all the Magento websites because it includes some outside of Magento. Unfortunately, we filtered them to .com domains, then analyzed the remaining set using a whole bunch of Google's tools. The result was about 4,000 Magento websites and about 400 Hyva websites. And I made sure it covered really major brands on both sides of the aisle. So how do we wrap this up? Should I move to Hyva? Let's let the data speak for itself. Data is nuanced. As you know, my answer is also going to be nuanced, which is the most annoying answer in this industry. I think I can solve it really easily for you if you're open to a 30-minute conversation. I've done this enough that with a few questions, I can usually give you a direction that I am really confident is going to lead you to very successful results. Shoot me an email, joseph@swiftotter.com. We'll get a conversation scheduled, your questions answered, and a direction set for you.